Episode 3. How long does it take to get good? When you start playing a fighting game, everything can seem hard and daunting. You watch top players in action, and the way they play looks so distant and unreachable. So how long does it take to get good at fighting games? Surely it must take at least a gazillion hours, right? Here's the actual answer. 20 hours. We know it sounds weird, but hear us out. In his book, The First 20 Hours, Josh Kaufman summarizes the findings of academic research on the process of acquiring new skills. Let's look at these findings in a way that's relevant to improving in fighting games. When we measure the amount of improvement, and the amount of time it takes to achieve this improvement, with the x-axis being the time investment, and the y-axis being the level of skill demonstrated, we get a graph that looks very similar to logarithmic growth. Logarithmic growth increases quickly at first, but the gains decrease and become more difficult as time goes on. We can split the graph into two parts. The first part, where you improve a lot in a short amount of time, and the second part, where you improve at a much slower pace. The first part takes 20 hours, and the goal is to reach that point marked on the graph. Let's call it the turning point. What's so special about the turning point? First of all, it's a modest goal that you can certainly achieve within the time frame. Comparing yourself to top players may lower your motivation, and high motivation is the main factor that will bring you success. The turning point separates the first part from the second part. The first part, while only 20 hours, is also the confusing and frustrating part, where it's harder to stay motivated. Always keep reminding yourself. Even if it's frustrating now, it becomes so much easier after the turning point. It's only 20 hours. You can make it through. The turning point may still be far from the highest point in the graph, but it is still pretty high. When you reach it, you'll be much, much better at the game compared to how you were 20 hours prior. You'll also reach a high enough level to be able to taste how fun the game is at advanced levels of play. Both of these factors will keep you inherently motivated and satisfied. That's why the second part is easy. Now let's delve into these first 20 hours. These 20 hours are special, and you need to treat them accordingly. You can't just mash buttons for 20 hours and expect to reach the goal. You need to adhere to a very specific course of action. You can split those 20 hours up any way you want. For example, half an hour every day. But when you sit down to do this half hour, you need to work hard and give it all you've got. Some aspects of this course of action may sound very familiar to many of you. That's because we've already applied them in our previous video series, Guilty Gear Crash Course. It consists of two stages. 1. Creating a plan. Dividing the game into small parts, and organizing them in order of importance. 2. Executing the plan. Mastering the most important small parts by rotating between theory and experience. Creating a plan. First, you need to find out what being good at your game actually means. You need to deconstruct being good into many, many small sub-skills. Then, you need to organize all these sub-skills in order of importance, and focus on the important ones first. The Pareto principle, i.e. the 80-20 rule, also applies to fighting games. 20% of the sub-skills are responsible for 80% of your performance, and 80% of the sub-skills are responsible for 20% of your performance. So you don't need to master a lot of the game, just the most important 20%, and the first 20 hours should all be dedicated to that. For example, a hard corner combo that only works on one character and requires a full super meter may be flashy, but it's very low priority. This time should be used instead to practice the easy meterless combo that works anywhere and on every character, as it will help you more overall. Here we encounter the first major hurdle that often occurs with fighting games. If you don't understand the game yet, how can you divide it into sub-skills and organize them in order of importance? One solution is that experienced players can do this and build a plan for newbies. just like we did in Guilty Gear Crash Course. But what do you do when there's no such plan? We'll get to that later in this video. But for now, let's assume you were given a solid plan and explain the execution stage. First, prepare a way to record and watch your own matches. Most contemporary fighting games let you save replays of your matches. If not, then modern consoles can also record game footage, and recording the screen of a PC is easy. Even a low-quality phone camera will do, as long as you're able to understand what's going on in the footage. Recording how you play is crucial if you want to improve effectively, because fighting games are too fast to learn from in real time. An experienced player already knows most of the game, so only focusing on a few new things can be done in real time. But for a new player, everything goes by in a flash, and it's hard to remember and understand what just happened after the match ends. The recordings of your matches will allow you to catch up with the high speed of the game and learn effectively. After you've prepared your ability to record, it's time to start the rotation of theory and experience for each important sub-skill. Focus on the first sub-skill of the plan, while ignoring everything else. First, learn the theory behind this small aspect of the game. What to do, how, and why. If you are reading a text guide, focus on the chosen aspect and ignore everything else. If you are watching a match video of high-level play, focus on the chosen aspect and ignore everything else. Organize what you've learned into short notes, and now it's time for the experience phase. Take these things to your game's practice mode. Experience how it feels when you are doing it yourself, rather than watching someone else. Then take it into actual matches against an opponent that fits your current level, whether it's the CPU or a human opponent. Now, you'll probably encounter problems, and if you didn't recognize them by yourself, then use the recordings. Now go back to the theory sources again, and this time you'll understand them a little bit better than before. Write additional notes, then go back into the game. Simulate situations in practice mode using recordings, and play more matches, then rotate back to theory. This rotation is easy and effective because you only need to learn very little, just enough to be able to self-correct. Remember that if you don't understand something or feel stuck, you can always ask an experienced player for advice, and having the option to show your recordings helps others give you better feedback. Once you feel like you've mastered this small aspect of the game, move on to the next important aspect on the list, and so on. Now let's go back to the planning stage, and assume you don't have a ready-made plan an experienced player made. How do you create your own plan from scratch? 1. Before delving into your specific game of choice, make sure to catch up with the general genre basics first. Do you understand the difference between a high block and a low block? Do you understand what a combo is? It's easy to find this basic information on the internet, the game's manual, or in-game tutorial. 2. Are you absolutely sure there's no available information about your game and character on the internet already? Have you tried searching for info via search engines? Have you tried asking other fighting game players on social media? In the vast majority of cases, if you search thoroughly, you'll find something useful, even for extremely old or niche games. After you've learned about genre basics and gathered whatever info you can, pick the first small aspect to focus on by yourself. This can be done in 2 ways, top-down or bottom-up. Top-down is done by watching a high-level match video and seeing a specific action being used a lot. This action may be good. Pick this action as the first aspect to focus on, and apply the rotation of theory and experience. Bottom-up would be to play the game until you've encountered a problem that made you lose. It's not hard to recognize these situations. It's when you get hit, or fail to score hits, or get yourself cornered. Use your recordings to examine these situations, then search for solutions and apply the rotation of theory and experience. Progressing in both the top-down and bottom-up routes will naturally guide you towards the most common situations, and the order of aspects you end up with will probably end up very similar to the right order to learn the game with. Here's a quick summary of what you need to do in the first 20 hours, presented as a simple flowchart. 1. Catch up with genre basics. 2. Search the internet and ask people for available info about the specific game and character. 3. Prepare a recording method. 4. Is there a ready-made plan or not? If there is, move straight to number 6. If there isn't, move to number 5. 5. Apply both top-down and bottom-up approaches to pick common aspects to focus on, both from footage of high-level play and from your own matches. 6. Focus on the chosen small, important aspect of the game. Rotate between theory and experience until you have improved enough at it, and then move on to the next important aspect. 7. Repeat number 6 until the 20-hour mark. It can get unpleasant or frustrating at times, so do whatever it takes to ensure you will stick to the routine and focus while doing it. Prepare all the equipment in advance, remove distractions, and forgive yourself for making mistakes. You're only human. Make an effort to record your performance, analyze your mistakes, and ask better players to provide you feedback. No matter what happens, keep pushing and practicing the most important sub-skills until you hit the 20-hour mark. If you did everything as we described, you will amaze yourself in the end. Be sure to come back to this video and share your experience. In the next episode, we'll demonstrate these guidelines in action, and use them to ease your way into the world of 3D fighting games. Until then, take some time to think about what we presented, and if you liked the video, make sure to subscribe for more episodes.